All right, we'll call the Public Transit Advisory Committee meeting to order. My name's Heather Tice. It is 4:12, and we'll do introductions. Serena, you want to go?
Sure. My name's Serena Pearson. I'm with Lawrence Transit.
Nick Kuzmiak, member of PTAC.
Jessica Moringer, interim transit manager.
And Dustin Smith, I'm with MSO Engineering.
Welcome.
Mike Wazakowski, I'm a member of the Public Transit Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
I'm Janana Meehan, urban studies researcher. This year not enrolled at KU, but I was in the urban planning program.
Great.
Phyllis Farrer, Public Transit Advisory Committee member.
Wendy Kerner, Lawrence Transit.
And I'm Brandon McGuire with the City Manager's Office.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so we go to the first item, which is public comment. Is there any public comment?
Well, I had something that I wanted to bring up. Actually, I brought it up on here since I didn't print out. Oh, it's unlocked, so good. So I don't know how closely everyone here follows news. In particular, KCUR is one of the NPR stations in Kansas, and they reported this week on Wichita making a purchase of a bunch of electric buses. And they also mentioned a couple of things elsewhere in the article, in particular that they've been working with Evergy to get money to do a conversion of electrical infrastructure at their storage base to be able to charge vehicles as large as buses in a reasonable amount of time. Only wanted to bring this up because I know that we are working on building a new transit center. We're also, from what I recall recently, talking about making an upgrade and replacing a bunch of vehicles in our fleet that is relatively aged and gets older by the year as we use them. And this is a great opportunity for the city potentially in the future to consider an option that a lot of cities are using. I mean, you can see in the top paragraph that I have up there that they've now sold, this company that built these buses has sold 700. That doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, we don't have that many buses in our fleet, so we could definitely but we could potentially consider that, I think, especially knowing that Evergy is a big promoter of electrification in transit. I mean, you can look at the fact that they've built charging stations on the interstate. They've filled out the infrastructure in Kansas City and would almost certainly be willing to support us if we went this route.
I thought Bob had already set in motion a plan to purchase a couple of diesel buses, or did that not actually go through? I don't know.
Yeah, we have on contract to purchase 3 29-foot diesel buses that will be here in the spring.
Okay.
Any other comment? Okay. We go down to approving the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
You have a forum to do so.
Oh yeah, no, we don't.
No,
I don't think we do. Should we skip down to the item D and transit manager hiring discussion? I don't know what to say about that.
Sounds good to me.
I'll let you know.
Sounds good. So that's my piece of
Napkin?
piece number 1 out of 2 for me of the agenda.
Okay.
So I appreciate the opportunity
Sure.
to come and talk to you. Again, Brandon McGuire. My role with the city, or my position, is assistant to the city manager. So I work very closely with the city manager, and I have departmental supervisory responsibility of our Public Works and Utilities Department, which we call MSO, or Municipal Services and Operations. It includes Parks and Recreation and transit and parking. And so I worked very closely with Bob and Serena and Emily. I also tend to work very closely with Jessica in terms of transit planning functions and transportation and more comprehensive mobility issues. So we've been working together in this structure for probably 3.5 or 4 years now. So I've gotten to know transit very well. And so as you know, the supervisor, the transit manager, it falls to me to sort of lead and facilitate the recruitment of the next director. And so I wanted to take the opportunity and engage PTAC. Number one, just to update you on that hiring process, and then to get some discussion, some input from the PTAC members about characteristics of the new transit director that we should be looking for in the recruitment. What type of experience would you like to see us go after? What's going well and where we can improve and where we have opportunities such as environmental sustainability initiatives and those sorts of things. So just to kind of help inform us about who we look at and what questions we ask of them throughout this hiring process. So where we're at with it, we've closed the application period, and we do have a number of well-qualified applicants. We've got just a fantastic system here, and I think at the national level, and especially at the state and regional level, we're really well known. So we were able to attract a good pool. Some things I think we really have going for us. Recently, our city commission adopted a new pay plan for the organization, and so that makes us more competitive in the market in terms of getting those people who have more experience, more tenure of experience, to be able to be interested in Little Lawrence. And then I think one of the keys to our strategic, our ability to be competitive in hiring is our sales tax. And the fact that it was renewed for another 10 years just last year, or well, starting
effective.
Yeah.
I always get the timing of that stuff, but the voters renewed it with overwhelming support, both the first time and the second time. I think that speaks volumes about our community's commitment to public transit, and people pay attention to those sorts of things, and they want to be a part of that. So we've got a good pool of applicants. We're going to be doing an internal round of interviews in the probably about 3 to 4 week time span. It gets a little tricky when you do hiring processes, the holidays, to coordinate everybody's calendars. So it'll be around that time span. We'll get an internal round of interviews through a video conference system, and then we will have a short list of finalists, and we're looking to have 1, maybe 2 finalists actually come to our community, and we'll do in-person interviews with an executive team internally to the city, and then we're also going to invite stakeholders to participate in an interview panel as well. So I would like for the chair or somebody that the chair feels comfortable representing PTAC to be a member of that panel. I think it's one of the most important voices to have on the panel, and that will be a good opportunity to influence and advise the city manager on the best attributes of the candidate. So that's where we're at with the process. I hope to have somebody, or at least have the process to the point that we can make an announcement about the hire by the end of the year. I've promised to Jessica that she won't be a super long-term interim director, because she's wearing 2 hats right now, and she's doing this to help out, but she can't sustain that pace forever. So that's where we're at with the process. Does anybody have any questions about that hiring process?
How many candidates overall applied?
We got candidates overall about 15.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it. So what I'll say about city jobs is sometimes we get people who have really no relevant experience whatsoever applying for some of those jobs.
So in terms of like legitimate candidates.
Legitimate candidates, I would say There were about 10 of them that we looked pretty closely at. And we've got a short list now of probably about 6. So we'll extend interviews for the first round for those. So,
Great.
yeah, and we will not be releasing names of that short list. You know, we try to honor people's confidentiality in that regard, but at least through that stakeholder panel process, folks will be introduced to the finalists. So.
How many finalists do you plan to include?
I'm hoping to get it down to 2.
Okay.
I really am. I'm always open to 3, but I find you know, if there's 2 that really rise to the top, or even 1 in that first round, you can always do a finalist round, and if it doesn't quite pan out, invite a couple others. But I like to get it as narrowed as we can.
Can you share anything about like the demographic breadth of those dozen or so that you considered legit?
I'll share my own personal observations. And again, I'm always hesitant to share too much information about a confidential hiring process because this.
Yeah, I'm not looking for specifics on any given person, just as a whole.
You don't have to say a city's name.
My observation is that the transit industry skews older to middle-aged white male.
Okay.
And I think you look at a lot of transit agencies around the country, and that's the demographic. That's true with a lot of government positions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so it's not nearly as diverse a pool as we had hoped for, but we do have a couple candidates that would not conform to that that demographic. So,
thank you.
Which is great. It was a national recruitment, and we have a recruitment specialist working in our human resources department, and particularly with some of our leadership positions, all of our leadership positions, we do targeted recruitments for different types of demographics and job boards that advertise based on different demographics. So I think we're somewhat successful in that regard. But great experience amongst all the candidates in operations and planning and direct experience with public transit agencies of varying sizes across the country. So that's what we like.
So what kind of particular qualities is the city looking for?
Well, that's really what I'm here to ask you guys about. So I can tell you everything that we're looking for. And I've spoken with the staff. I've spoken with Donna and Aaron at KU on Wheels, because they're one of the key partners, and the director works very closely with them. And so I think I've got a good feel, at least for KU and for our staff and our management team, what we're looking for. And it's number one, to build on the success, because Bob came in here 10 years ago with a goal, and it was to get us to or at as close to 30-minute service with all of our routes citywide. And we've darn near accomplished that on every route. And so, in doing so, I think him and the staff were very successful at increasing ridership, increasing the popularity of Lawrence Transit, going back to the T of Lawrence Transit. And I think we've done fantastic things. So we're not looking for somebody to change and shake everything
Unravel
up.
that.
Yeah, we really want to build on the success and build on the brand and build on the partnerships and the community. That being said, this next item is about the transfer hub, and so a lot of the route structure will be changing as part of that project. So we will need somebody who can help facilitate all that and shepherd all that change through. But in terms of branding, operations, who we're going after for business partnerships and those sorts of things, I think we really want to just continue on the trajectory we're going on. And that's from us. So, so one of the questions I had is number one, what are we doing well? And you can be granular, or you can be, big picture. And number two, what opportunities do we have to improve? Where should we be looking to bring in a different type of experience or a different type of skill set? So it's kind of just, this is intended to just sort of be an open discussion about that amongst PTAC.
Well, I would think that knowing that that just making a definite plan for a transit hub and the process of changing a routes that need to be changed that will benefit from that new hub, and how the ridership or potential ridership or critics will react to that change just because it's change. Someone who's maybe had some experience with a shift of some sort in service, and how you prepare for it, how you sell it, how you encourage people to embrace the new and see that it's a whole system, and you have to make it all work together. You can't just
the progress is it should, you know, like how to kind of shift that fear to excitement.
Exactly.
That's really, because I mean the PTAC group, I mean, we've been hearing and talking about it for so long that you don't have to convince us that it's a good idea. And the ridership, I think, is not all the ridership is really tuned into reading the paper. Not all the, you know, like, so some of that stuff isn't really on their radar. So a change is something that has to be kind of grassrootsy for them, because getting it out in the city computer site is not gonna reach some of our ridership. So it needs
some
to be,
innovations in that direction.
So
are going to be needed.
You know, the fear. Lance is one of our PTAC members, and he often voices his concern about change and how it's really worrying some of the riders when he shares what he knows about things that may be coming down the pike. And I think just making sure we're addressing that fear, and with that branding, it's a perfect opportunity to, you know, make the hub and the branding kind of go together, so that it really makes sense for, because we get an influx of new students, and some of our students are going to be using the bus, but it also, they use the KU bus, and but it's the demographic that's using the bus daily to get to and from work and to the grocery store and all of that we really want to make sure understand how it will help, and how it can be comfortable. Sitting in a bus and switching to a different bus isn't something that has to be uncomfortable. Because because some of the folks that use the bus have limited mobility or whatever, so we just want to make sure that that ease happens and kind of ease the worry. That makes sense?
So somebody that has experience that has broken that.
Right.
Selling it is a really good way to put it, because we've always...
Because it's a great idea. It's just how to sell it to the folks that are not familiar with what we are familiar with, which is the everyday. We know that in other cities it works really well. There's a formula that works to make it a shorter trip, a better system, but it's just explaining that to the...
I think another concern that I've kind of had in the back of my head about needing a new director at this particular juncture is that the relationship with KU is really good with the ridership, the working on the branding and so on. However, a joint building project is going to take a whole nother kind of person because building projects, I mean, you have to be pushy and you have to be
tenacious.
Yes, and again, it's with KU, so you always have to know whose toes you're stepping on and when it's okay to step on them, and when that's. I would feel for a person jumping in and not necessarily knowing, knowing that there's a good rapport with the leadership.
Right.
Certainly has been a good rapport with the leadership at Wheels, KU on Wheels, but
Right.
that's going to take some gumption, or I'm not sure what the right word is, yeah. And jumping in, because how long are we going to sit on that $5 million or whatever it is that's going to build that place?
Right.
You know, will it be another 10 years? I mean, I really remember campaigning for the tax, and that was a big part of it, and it could sit there and not get done. I don't want to campaign another round.
Yeah, maybe being able to sell to the city too, because every time we get a new set of commissioners, every time, like, I think that over the years that I've been on PTAC, it seems like every time there's a shift, it's like you're back to square one every single time. And the commissioners are all good, they all have great ideas, but sometimes it's like they're so excited to be in the position, they have all these great ideas. It's like, well, couldn't you just listen to what we really have already established and think of us as some sort of expert? Because I remember writing ideas and going back to them and saying, why are you doing this? And we got nothing.
Right.
So that's frustrating as an advisory committee to feel like we have zero impact.
There's a little bit of that.
And I'm not saying that we have zero impact. It just really didn't, like, over the years there's been different things that we felt pretty strongly about, and it just didn't seem to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So that liaison role.
Well, it's a tricky role. I'm not saying that it's easy.
Yeah.
So.
It is a tricky role, but somebody who works in that line of work where you're working in the public sector, you have to be skilled at.
Oh yeah. Well, and I feel like Bob did a great job, and I'm just hoping we have someone that is able to do that as well,
Right.
and with the new challenges.
Right. Right.
So.
I had a couple I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
So I think, Heather, you were touching on this a little bit, but I just wanted to, I guess, echo and build on it. So it would be nice to get somebody who can embrace new trends in technology, not necessarily trendy things, but things that are coming out before it's too late. Like, for example, on the Transportation Commission, going about dealing with micro mobility like e-scooters before it sweeps us like an avalanche, like it has other larger cities, right? So that kind of getting out in front of stuff, like, for example, maybe electric buses instead of sticking with the old ways, right? Having somebody who can kind of build on that. And I think Bob was pretty into new trends for the most part, and I think First Transit is as well. So to continue that would be nice.
Yes.
Second one was somebody who's data and statistics oriented, who makes decisions based off of what's actually been done,
Evidence.
Some science, evidence, research, yeah. Which is probably a given, honestly, for most transit director candidates, but just to put it explicitly. The third one is a willingness and an, I guess, proactive nature to working with both planning and KDOT, which are two pretty wildly different entities, but the Douglas County Planning Commission and MPO, I suppose, both, it would be good to be able to liaise with them as much as possible, because planning and development affects transit, and transit affects planning and development. And I feel like those divisions tend to be siloed a little bit more than absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the commissions, Planning Commission and Transportation Commission rarely talk to each other, unfortunately. But our stuff really affects each other's stuff. So, KDOT, on the other hand, it's like kind of like bad highway planning through cities can affect how transit is effective. So I think it'd be nice to have an open relationship with KDOT as well, to be able to, kind of deal with issues as they come. Let's see. The next one was a willingness to face friction with the City Commission and the public I feel like a lot of people on staff often are, usually, technocrats I think has gotten a bad, image over the years, but as somebody who's really good at what they do on a technical level, and sometimes they are the expert in their field, and it helps to sometimes have some assertion to back that up and say, yeah, we know that, you feel a certain way about a certain thing, but really the evidence is here. And that comes into a lot of city departments, whether it's planning, transportation, all sorts of stuff. And I think having somebody who's technically oriented and willing to kind of stand up against, the naysayers, not to be cantankerous necessarily, but, to not just kind of bow to public pressure if it's on a whim, for example.
Right.
And finally, this is kind of random, and, feel free to, but a familiarity with international practices, or even possibly experience, because it's a pretty open secret that Europe is way better at transit than we are for the most part, as is Asia. And
Canada
honestly,
is awesome at transit as well.
and even-
Pretty much we're the only place other than New York and maybe arguably DC and San Francisco potentially. Transit sucks in America.
Yeah. And, I mean, even Latin America and South America, it's actually pretty good in a lot of places, partly out of necessity. A lot of people can't afford cars, so these strange little enterprises start popping up like microbuses and things like that. That probably wouldn't be legal here. But it'd be interesting to even have somebody who considers what's going on elsewhere, not just here, to see how we can maybe apply best practices to kind of move forward in the U.S. So, anyway, just my thoughts.
Anyone else want to chime in?
You hit two of my big ones, so I'm good.
Sweet. I figured we probably have a couple of comments, so that's good.
Do you have any others, Mike?
No, honestly, the biggest thing that I was going to say is that you already hit on the comparative research, like looking at other areas, whether it's inside of the United States or elsewhere across the globe, to see what are best practices going on. And I guess some of that would also come from maybe having a good network of contacts inside of the profession that, I find it's really easy to read a paper and not necessarily get the gist, but you have a face-to-face meeting with the person who wrote that paper, and it's a completely different story. You connect in a way that isn't there. So someone who's, I guess that's a way of saying that someone who's maybe not been in the industry a while, but someone who can express breadth of contacts would be beneficial.
Right. Or almost like job hopping might almost be more advantageous than being in one place for 20 years, which is kind of unusual compared to other fields. Job hopping might be nice.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing I always liked about Bob is he does have good industry connections, and he's worked in the freight industry, he's worked in private sector, public sector, all over. So it is interesting.
Have you gotten any applications from people who aren't actually in public transit, but perhaps are supply chain experts or even
Lean Six Sigma certified?
Yeah, like something totally different that could be applied to it. I mean,
we got some very interesting, a couple, and we're dealing with a small pool. I mean, we're not talking about dozens and dozens, but a couple of very interesting non-traditional applicants.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you open to interviewing non-traditional people?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
It's Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely there.
Well, does that help you?
This is very helpful, yeah. Yeah, in some ways it affirms that I think we're thinking about it the right way, and then there's definitely been some additional input that we haven't considered yet, so I really do appreciate that.
Good.
And I'm going to use this to help, talk with the city manager about it and the internal panels about it, and as well as kind of use it to craft our questionnaires for the interviews and some of our how we evaluate and rate the candidates. So,
now, I know this is a little bit tangential, but since you're probably opening up a search for a new planning director as well, everything I said also applies to that position. So, just saying.
Yeah. No, transportation and planning, are clearly overlapped. There's a reason why Jessica is the interim. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, if only we could get her to.
Double payment.
We've tried. So, all right. Well, I really appreciate that, and I've been typing notes, so got that down. Do you want me to segue
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
next?
let's segue into transit and amenities.
Yeah, and
Transit center, sorry.
And Phyllis and Heather, you mentioned several things that apply to that topic. So just where we're at with the project is we've got an agreement drafted, a memorandum of understanding with KU drafted. Both parties administratively are comfortable with it. It's pretty simple, and it will just reaffirm KU's formal position that they support the project, they support the general footprint that we're considering for the project, which again is along Bob Billings, on the south side of Bob Billings, somewhere between Iowa and Crestline. So that general footprint there at the bottom of the hill. And so the MOU we'll take it to the city commission, and then I believe the chancellor has to sign on KU's end. I forget. And Jim Modig may be able to sign it as the university architect. But that will give the city what we need to be able to start spending money. And so we've got, KU supportive of it, the city commission is supportive of the site. Before we start encumbering funds and going out and hiring technical experts to start doing the preliminary analysis on the site and the traffic studies and all of that, so that we understand how the site's going to perform and work, that will all help us get the final footprint, so then we can come up with the land use agreement to completely formalize the deal. So that's where we're at. It's kind of just a little bit of back and forth right now. And honestly, I admit I'm the bottleneck on it at the moment. It's sitting in my queue to finish it up.
Get on it.
And,
Yeah.
and get it to the city commission.
So would that possibly be on the agenda, maybe not next week, but say beginning of December then?
Yeah. We're going to keep the December 5th meeting very, very light because that's the
3rd, I think.
Yeah.
5th is a Thursday.
The 3rd, yeah, sorry. That's the new commission swearing in. So my goal is to have it wrapped up by the end of the year. So
Good.
yeah.
It'd be nice to have it, at least that part of it done, so when you
get to work.
When you hire, it isn't that far back.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's been my goal, is just in the interim to keep some progress moving. KU's been very good to work with, very willing. Jim Modig on KU's end, he's, it's one of the projects he really, really wants to see accomplished before he leaves that place. So, so we're happy to have him and his support helping facilitate, because he really, I think, he carries a lot of weight and respect to KU. So, I will say, I assume everybody knows, but just so you understand how the facility is envisioned to work, it will be the point of hard transfer. It'll be the hard transfer for the system. So our operations center up in the Santa Fe Industrial Park up north of town, that's where we'll continue to maintain the contractor's office space, the bus barn, the garage, dispatch, all of that. We're still envisioning keeping that there. This is going to take the downtown transfer point, our transfer station, and provide an adequate and efficiently functioning space for that, a safe space for that function. So that's really what we're envisioning, is functionality, and then let the form of the facility reflect the functionality of the facility. So that's sort of the philosophy we're taking with it.
Well, we're pretty, at least I've been aware of it for a long time.
Yeah.
So
yes, painfully.
Yeah, so if we start this at the beginning of the year, the technical analysis, traffic analysis, all that stuff, how long, any idea how long that would take before we would get the results of that and be able to look at them ourselves?
I would want to have, I think we can probably conservatively say probably 12 to 18 month timeline for the technical work. Dustin is actually going to be the lead project manager. So the way we've done some restructuring internally to the city, and when we combined public works and utilities in the previous departments, we combined several of those work groups in one. We now call it CMed, So in my time here, I've had this idea that we can sort of have our own internal project management consulting firm or consultancy, and I think that makes it a little bit more efficient. So we used to have engineers in both departments, plus a sort of separate stormwater, not separate, but somewhat separate stormwater engineering division. So now all of our engineers are working in CMED, which stands for Construction Management, Engineering, and Development. And so they're looking at not just public improvement projects and not just public development plans, public improvement plans for private development, but they're also looking at our own internal facility projects. And so that model has been working in a few different applications very well. Our Fire Station 1 facility, the new burn tower, and our police facility, where the engineers are now working as essentially a consultancy to the sponsor. So it's not the chief of police who's out there, doing the project management on the police facility. They're named as captains. They're the customers, and it's Dustin and his co-workers and CMED that are really doing the heavy lifting with the technical part of project management. And so I think we'll be able to move more efficiently in that way, and we'll avoid some missteps that maybe we would have if it's somebody who really needs to be focusing on transit operations and our transit customers, also trying to manage a capital project, in the $5 million value. So
Very helpful. I like that.
I think so. I like it too because it takes pressure off of us. So.
Well, it puts the projects in a better order.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, and I can see potentially some opportunities for alternative procurement for this project. We do have the ability now here, just recently, last year or two, City Commission adopted a charter ordinance that allows us to do some of these major capital projects through alternative procurement. So we're doing that with the police facility. It's a construction manager at risk contract, which provides for the actual project execution. When it's used right, it works a lot better than a design bid build type of approach to project management, because you get the designer, the architect, and you get the general contractor, the company that's going to build it. You get them working at the beginning together, and so you avoid a lot of those issues where you've got a design, you've got a whole plan set, and then now you take it to bid, and you sometimes learn the hard way that maybe that design plan set doesn't work so well in some cases. So I can see this being something that we at least really evaluate alternative procurement as a delivery method. So I would like to give you a date. My goal is we're up and running in 3 years. That being said, there's a lot of variables that could influence the timeline, but that's...
How many city commissions will we have?
That'll just be one more at this point. So I'm excited about it. There's a lot of momentum.
Okay, great.
Is there any other questions that I can answer?
Are we going to talk about amenities?
So amenities, we do have and actually Jessica might be.
Oh, sure. No, that's what
I.
So we still have the slated amenities, and we have to follow up because we have not gotten any work now with the seasonal weather change, of course, on some of with our current contractor under Parks and Recreation. But I was wondering, Brandon, if you wanted to talk about the velocity.
Yeah. Bob and I were actually approached several months ago by Velocity Church, the pastor Justin and one of his members, Rachel Hartford. And Rachel actually works at Heartland Community Clinic, so there's sort of some connections there in the community and with the city. But they said that they wanted to do something big, and they wanted it to be transit oriented. And so we started talking about what they might be able to do. They've observed a lot of the bus benches around town and the need for amenities, and they raised funds in their congregation in the amount of $10,000. And they called me up a couple weeks ago and said, we're ready to drop the check off. So our finance department is in possession of the check, and they're not being specific about, you know, we want to stop here and we want it to look like this with our name on it. They just want it to go to our riders and be put to the best use in any form of amenities that help our people while they're waiting for the bus or getting dropped off. So most likely we'll put it towards benches, pad sites and benches, as opposed to the full in-case shelters, because I think we can hit more stops that way. We're gonna. I'm trying to get them. They don't want to be recognized for it, but I'm trying to get them to come to a city commission meeting here in a couple weeks and at least let us say thank you. So something exciting.
Kudos to them.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good group to potentially solicit for applications to be on PTAC or
Yeah,
transportation
absolutely.
in the future at some point too.
So,
Yeah, especially since that's on quick updates.
yeah.
Maybe since they're doing this, maybe this will prompt some other groups to do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
actually,
something,
that's
you
a,
know.
Well, I just think it's a great. It's always a really good thing when somebody, you know, in a group like that, whether it's a social service agency or a faith-based congregation, they come looking to be a co-producer and you know, putting some skin in the game too. So it's great. It's great.
Okay, anything else on that agenda item? So we'll go down to quick updates, vacancies.
actually, can I,
Sure.
how many sites, pads were pending before that contract
We probably
kind of?
can answer that question for you.
We had about 20 sites that we were doing something to, whether it was pouring concrete and putting benches or other amenities. We have a couple of shelters that we wanted to have moved from, you know, and put to other pads, and that's part of it. But there were about 20 of them. A few of them got knocked back off the list because either we found out the topography was not conducive to what we wanted to put in, or there were one in particular we would have had to have gotten an easement, and then it turned out that there was a water line project that needed another easement, which was much bigger, and then the property owner was doing something else on the property, so that one kind of fell by the wayside. So, you know, we've had it out to a contractor who's been so behind because of the weather this past year that he hasn't been able to get to any of them. So, you know, we're working to try and get some of those done as soon as we can. But I think there are 3 or 4 sites in particular that I know of that the velocity money could probably really be a benefit to. And then I think we have probably 10 for next year that, you know, that we had just kind of started out with, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have. I mean, we've got good funding through the CIP. It's just contractor management has been very difficult this year. Not just on this, but on all of our, especially our flat work projects.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? I apologize, Phyllis.
That's okay. I'm slow on the uptake.
So should we move on to quick updates, upcoming vacancies?
Yeah. So I was hoping both either Lance or Sarah's positions are both expiring at the end of the year, so we'll reach out to them to see if they're interested. Otherwise, if you know people that are, because we believe there's one of them is not, Bill Wilson has been reappointed, who joined us for the first time at the last PTAC meeting till 2022. So there will be 2 vacancies that are unappointed, and anybody who's interested in those positions can fill out a form on the city's website on our advisory boards and committees page for consideration by our mayor for appointment by the city commission. So. You should expect as a body to get maybe some new members or welcome some back.
Okay, super.
Would those people be appointed after the new mayor takes position? Because I think that would be Jen and Amanda, I think is the next one in the cycle.
I would assume so, Brandon, but they could also probably appoint up into that point. I don't know what the courtesy is to...
Neither do I.
Okay.
It's a good question. I think it's really entirely up to the discretion of the mayor and commission.
I imagine it depends on when the applications or the renewals go in. Like,
right.
Yeah, I don't know
if
when.
Lance were to call and say, I'd like to continue my membership, I imagine that would continue well before the new commission, if it was before the new commission or the new mayor. So,
so when does Mayor Larson's term end?
It'll be with the swearing in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that first meeting in December.
Yeah, so there's basically one meeting left for Ms. Larson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. City Advisory Board Protocol.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to put this on the agenda because I think if you notice, your agenda looks a little bit different, and how you got to it, probably from the web link was okay because you had a link, but the city is transitioning all of our boards and committees to iCompass, which is the software where we do all the city commission agenda management. And so pretty soon they'll be transitioning the typical advisory board pages into iCompass, so those will look a little bit different, so expect that to look a little bit different. And that's supposed to help with some functioning of being able to construct agendas and take minutes and action to reflect that. As well as Serena mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, posting the audio recordings to those for your records, and having those kind of all in a consolidated place for all the city boards and committees. Likewise, the email you received, which is from our mailing list, the Public Transit Advisory Committee. So if any of your friends or family want to sign up, that subscription page is online. I believe there was, it was a little under 100 recipients that were on that list, and that will be the active list that goes out to send notification or cancellations of meetings as those occur. So I assume you all got that. We made sure you were all on that list, that was updated before those got sent out this way the past time, but that's how you should expect to see those in the future, not a specific email out of somebody's inbox, so nobody gets left behind. Anybody can subscribe to that list. It's public record and transparent information. So those are things that just might have changed compared to what you're used to, so I wanted to let you know about those. If something doesn't look right or looks different or needs to be changed, we would welcome any of that comment or criticism if stuff isn't working for you or it just looks different as we transition this process.
Thank you very much. We want to talk about the next meeting, December 9th. Are we planning to meet?
So I left meeting time and location on there. You've chosen this space to meet. Does it seem to be working for everyone? As staff, my only concern is if somebody shows up after 5 o'clock, those doors are locked. So if you come to the meeting seeing that it's posted on our calendar from 4:10 to 5:30, then you have come and you will not be able to get into the meeting. That's not generally, many of the other committees have public meeting spaces where they're unlocked at the door. So that's my concern about this space, and that we're not allowed to leave that space, unless we would staff that. So if others, that it would be my recommendation that we try to find another meeting space. I know that we've had challenges, this group, like many of our others. So thoughts about that in terms of, is this time still working, and or how have you felt about this meeting location?
So one of the reasons that we meet at 410 is because anyone who rides the bus can get to the transit hub, and then they can get over here in plenty of time, or could have gotten to any of our other locations. We've always tried to have the PTAC meetings in a public space near downtown, because the hub is down here currently. Mondays, the second Monday in particular, Mondays are just not a good night to do it at Carnegie. Parks and Rec just didn't have enough staff or resources to have an employee there. So So we would have to change the bylaws if we change the time or date, or I mean day of the month. But you know, it's whatever works for you guys. But finding a location has been really tough. I mean, the library gets booked up really quickly. Carnegie, you know, Monday's not good for them.
It really needs to be downtown,
Yeah.
so people can get here.
Service, yeah.
Yeah.
Until the new hub is built, at least.
Well, when the new hub is built, we could have it there, you
Mhm.
know, but that.
Maybe, if there's a meeting space.
Yeah,
If
we
there's
have
a
to-
meeting
We'll build a
space.
meeting space in the hub. Let's do.
It's a very small footprint.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about the community building in the past too, but it is several blocks away, and you know, we
And
have,
parking is a little tricky.
it is.
We can have it at our office, but our office space is so small.
Yeah, you can barely fit like 4 or 5 people
Yeah.
in there, and they all be at individual cubicles anyway.
Yeah.
What about the Park and Recreation Center?
I'm sorry.
En masse.
The
Park and Rec admin.
The Sustainability Advisory Board makes it there
Do they?
Just take the
Yeah.
Route 7,
from 5 to 7.
no, the Route 7.
Oh, for
That's-
the bus.
There's only one route that we can actually get you there if you take the bus.
Or 11
So,
gets
or-
about a block away.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
you
some
guys-
walk from the library
Do
or
they close
the
at 5?
New Hampshire.
They also close at 5 and lock their doors, in which case
Yeah.
you either have to have somebody watch the front door,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
an extra staff member watch the front door.
Well, yeah, if it's a city building, we could keep it open. It might be better maybe just for the staff to put our heads together and start scouting some spaces, and maybe at the next meeting discuss.
Yeah.
a new
Time
location.
is really contingent on that, a lot of that. So a
Yeah.
lot of the spaces aren't available at this time. So if you think that's an issue that we need to address to move, then we might have to reconsider our time of when we meet to find a time that would work in a different
Oops.
space. So
Sorry.
You mean move it earlier, move it later?
I think it's just, it
Anyway.
depends on whatever different day of the week.
I
mean,
I don't
think,
know.
yeah.
I'm willing to do whatever works for the good of the committee. I've been coming to the meetings for quite a while, and I have it on my calendar every month for the next year. So I'm happy to change that. If
Well, I
that's
was
the
going to
case.
say that the people who are currently on the board, it works for us, or we wouldn't be here.
Or at least half of us.
Or,
No,
yeah.
only half of you are at this point.
That's
but
true.
yes.
That's
So I
true.
wonder what.
If another
the
time would work
issues
for
are.
the others.
Yeah. It could be a time and location issue, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's Veterans Day days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Don't have as many people.
Well, and you know, I do understand the locked door, that is something that doesn't lend itself to opening it to people popping in at the end of a meeting. If we're doing if it's open meeting, that doesn't really feel open.
But if we do public comment at the beginning,
But we could advertise
solve
that there is, I mean, we could make sure that it's clear that it's not as accessible due to the meeting space at this time. And we can keep looking for a better space. I mean,
I can always watch the front door too. You know, it's not, I don't contribute that
or
much.
could we just like set up a doorbell? Only, like if we go doorbell during this time, like just kind of Velcro
little
on the back of the
ring.
door.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wendy.
it's like, oh, here we go. I mean, that would be like.
Yeah, I mean,
$20
honestly,
fix.
this has been the best location physically that we've had in a while, so if there's a way to
appreciate
keep
it.
something this quality and get around the other issues, I would say this is definitely the best option that I've found. Like, none of the rooms in the library have this much seating for public participation.
And you have to book it that day too, right?
What?
I think for the library you have to book like the day of or something. I think.
No.
maybe
It's
something
only
like-
a book so far in advance.
Okay.
yeah,
3 months in
they
advance.
open
Yeah.
it up
Okay.
about a month and a half ahead of
Yeah.
time or something like
And
that.
it is
And it's
really
booked at
quick.
this time. I
Yeah.
looked. It's people get on there and they just
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
reserve it
Forever.
about between 4 and 6. It seems like a popular time for meetings. So
Well, I appreciate everybody that does come as often as they do come. We generally have a quorum. So that is something that I feel like is a good success of our PTAC group, is we have folks that are committed to come, and I really appreciate that. So, the next meeting is December 9th here for now.
Yeah, I don't know at this point that I anticipate we'll have many items to update on agenda. So I know about a couple of years ago you talked about moving the meetings back to every month, and so typically you used to only have 6 meetings. So I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure if we were going to need. I brought cookies because I thought we might cancel the meeting for the 9th. But I'll bring more stuff on December 1 if we end up having
Cookies do freeze well, though.
Yeah.
And we have you on recording.
Yes,
They freeze
right.
great.
I'm recorded. I will bring something if we are meeting. So, what is the consensus?
Well, I'm unfortunately not going to be here. I've been slated to travel to Huntsville that week.
Okay.
Will there be any? I mean, it seems like every 2 months is about how much business we have to discuss, and that's about how fast things move. Is it?
I don't think it's unreasonable to cancel. I mean, especially because the new city commission will have just taken hold. So it'll be kind of in flux anyway.
Yeah, we'll be in the middle of hiring the new transit administrator, so hopefully January is the time frame when they'll have been hired and we'll be able to meet them for the first time.
Yeah.
And is the group okay with me being a part of the team for the interviewing process? Is the group okay with that? Okay, I just wanted to make sure if somebody felt very passionate about it, I would be willing to. Okay. So, Phyllis, are you thinking that maybe we should just plan on next year doing it bi-monthly?
No, I'm just thinking about December.
Okay.
Things move slow during the holidays anyway. So.
Okay, I'm fine with not meeting in December. Should we plan on the January 13th meeting?
Sounds good to me.
With a fresh new
City
year.
commission and transit director, and
Yeah. Yep, does that work for everyone? All right, well,
Not.
anything else before we close the meeting? Dustin, did you have anything you wanted to share?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry. Yeah, I have a question with regards to the procedure of appointing a PTAC member. How does it go?
Per the bylaws in our policy, the staff liaison lets the city manager's office know to inform the mayor if the current positions are interested in, if they're eligible or interested in filling their term for the next role. And after that is done, then the mayor gets that information as well as the information of all of the candidates that apply through the online forum. And then it's really at their discretion to contact any of those members to make an appointment to PTAC. Some mayors reach out to staff to ask, or they're per the policy to find out if they're looking for, in terms of equitable membership, to try to achieve our city's policy for diversifying our boards, whether that be through age or minority status. And so that discretion then is left up to the mayor, and those are put on the city commission agendas and adopted by the city commission.
So it first goes through city staff to the mayor, and then
for the current appointees. Otherwise, anyone in the general public can apply online and tell what boards you're interested in. So there's a short form you fill out on our website, on our boards and committees page, and you fill out your information and tell about why you're interested in applying. And you can choose if there's multiple boards that you're interested in.
I applied to this one.
Okay, so they will have that. There's a list of that information that they consider when they're making their appointments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else? Anyone else? Dustin, did you have anything you wanted to say? No? Okay.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Well, it's 5:12 and I will call this meeting to adjourn. Thank you, everyone.